Good morning, everyone. We are so excited today to have Tressa Brown and Gwen Henderson with us. They are experts in the study of the Indigenous peoples here in Kentucky. And I will let them tell you what they do in their real life jobs. And some of you have been lucky enough to get to spend some time with them a few weeks ago. But they're going to be sharing today with us some resources that we can use in our classroom. And I sent out a survey to you all a couple of weeks ago, and I think that you all have given them some details to work with. So they're going to try to meet your needs very specifically through that questionnaire that they sent out. So I'm going to turn it over to Gwen and Tressa, and I'm excited to hear what we're going to get today. It's going to be a great day.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen, as you can tell from my little name piece. I'm the education director at the Kentucky Archaeological Survey. I'm an archaeologist, and my research interests are Native peoples in Kentucky.
And I'm Tressa Brown. I coordinate the Kentucky Native American Heritage Commission that's administered out of the Kentucky Heritage Council. I work in Frankfort. And I guess Gwen and I have been working together for 20 years. Doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, we're all in.
Yeah, we really are. And in fact, when Tressa and I were working to prepare the various resource lists that you will see on the Google Drive, looking through the stuff, I'm like, these folks must think we are total narcissists, Tressa. Right? Tressa Brown did this. Gwen Henderson did this. Is there not anybody else who's doing this kind of thing anywhere else in the state, in the nation? And since our focus here is specifically Kentucky, I'm at a loss, Tressa, to come up with names of people who are involved, who are doing research on Native history specifically for Kentucky. Can you come up with anyone else?
Not as general as you and I kind of do it with the two ends of the spectrum that we use, but specific things, specific topics. There's, like there's Bill Best and there's David and there's, folks like that. But I think to get the big picture, people normally, well, I'll send people to you.
I'll send people to you. It's like.
So it depends on which end of the spectrum you want to deal with. But we do have an awful lot of information in the Google Drive. And we do appreciate you all answering that questionnaire that Kay mentioned, because we want you to drive what happens today. If you take a look at the Google Drive, I think Kay's put that access to that in the chat. And I kind of did a quick perusal of and tried to, let me find my notes. Looking at the answers to the questions that you all had, content, about half of you need content, the majority of you need images, the majority of you all need help evaluating images and content, and what was the other thing? How to use some of the content. So Gwen and I figured that we'd try to tap into particular, kind of pull up a couple of resources and walk through a couple of things with you. I think the key thing for me here, for you all, is that there's a ton of content available to you. And if you don't see something that you particularly are interested in combining, call one of us. Yeah. Because if I don't know and I'm going to send you to Gwen, or I'm going to chat with her, And then with the folks that we know, if there's a particular interest that you have or your students have, we will be happy to work with you, because this is not all that we know. This is not all that we know about. We were very selective in the pieces that are in the Google Drive. Even though there is a lot there, there's a lot more out there. So we can give you more.
We have one of the files on the Google Drive has our contact information, our email, our phone numbers, our addresses, and the kinds of things like, if you need to blah, 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 I can do this. So if you need somebody to come into your classroom, both of us can do that. If you need to know about contacting people, particularly Native peoples who you could invite to your classroom or something like that, Tressa knows that. So you have our contact information, and this is one of the, I mean, this is our job, our mission, and frankly, this is our passion, to ensure that teachers' needs are met with respect to this particular aspect, this particular topic in Kentucky history. We wanted to be sure, however, before we started reviewing materials, if there were any people who were in person when we gave our presentations that Saturday, or people who were on the Zoom. I've always felt like I was disrespecting, if there were any hanging Chad kind of questions that you would like answered before we begin reviewing the resources and so forth, we're pleased to do that. Over these intervening weeks, something might have come up that you wanted to ask. So particularly if you had reviewed some of the materials in the Google Drive prior to that event, and now we've added more stuff, which you may or may not have taken a look at. So we wanted to be sure that we closed up any questions from a couple of weeks ago. So did anybody have any questions?
Well, just one thing. This is Kayla Dameron at Scott County Middle. I cover 6th grade, so with my units, it's ancient cultures, but I'm also interested in, we do a unit about world beliefs and religions, and I have a hard time finding materials about Indigenous people and their religious beliefs. So if there's anything that you can point me in the direction to about resources for that?
Okay, we'll take a note and regarding that and get to that when we discuss the resources and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Will we have contact information for all these folks that are on the call with us, Kay?
We can certainly get that to you. Yes.
Yeah, that would be helpful, just in case. Again, anybody can email me and Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't feel shy.
And also,
don't feel shy asking questions.
Also, I took that contact page from the Google Drive and linked it directly on the active agenda there at the bottom, so that you don't have to go looking through all those resources to find it.
Oh,
and where it says materials and resources at the bottom of the agenda gives you access to the Google Drive that they're referring to.
And Kayla, to give you just a little heads up, Gwen can talk about some of the evidence of early history, religious belief in early history, and I can find you things that are a little bit more contemporary. So we can figure that out for you. There are some resources out there. Again, the Smithsonian is a good resource for American Indian, general American Indian topics. And there are a couple of other national museums that are very helpful with regard to that as well. So.
And,
Thank you.
and I add to that, I had a meeting about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago with the Smithsonian's National Museum for the American Indian for their Native Knowledge 360. And we are working up a possible collaboration for overall 5 years of this grant with them, and that may include some sort of a Smithsonian certification. So we're really excited about that. They've taken that back to their team and they're working on that as we speak. So, and maybe that's something that you all could do as well. So
Yeah,
we'll
we
get
could.
for you.
We could. In fact, I was thinking, from a certain perspective, Kayla, some of the information about Native religious beliefs are going to be very general and not specific, to Kentucky's Native peoples in particular. However, there are, from anthropological studies of traditional societies, there are different kinds of religions. Anthropologists separate them into different kinds of religions, world religions, traditional religions, and things like that. And there are multiple elements in Eastern North American religious beliefs. Specifics are different to each culture, of course, but sort of generalized religious approach to the unknown, to the world, and explaining the world are complementary. So it's difficult to, put into Google Kentucky's Native American religious beliefs. That's kind of hard to do, but there are general sources that would be able to provide information, feedback, specific comparisons and contrasts for religious beliefs. Native peoples in Eastern Woodlands are, I guess you would, in a general sense, Tressa, call them animistic religions. The belief that there are spirits in all animals, all living things, and all non-living things, and the relationship that people have to the world and to each other, the spirit world and so forth, and the perspective of creation stories and that kind of thing. So there are ways to find it. It would have to be more generalized, but you would be able to, I would have to go through and take a look at stuff and then know how to, present it for the middle school students that you're working with based on the
maybe I could send you a copy of my unit or like my expectations. Yeah,
that would be helpful, because then I might be able to do the research to find the information that you might need, because some of it is going to be in disparate places. Same way with the economics and culture, Josh. The Indigenous, this time period that we're talking about, 1619 onward, focusing on economics and culture, these native farming peoples, their economics are a kind of, it's not mercantilism, it's not those kinds of economics that we think of when we think of more industrialized societies. It's a kind of economics that is still in our world today. Barter, for example, down the line exchange, economic thinkings relating to things that don't require money, but it's still economics because it's about production, exchange, distribution of goods and things. And the farming cultures are producing food, they're exchanging goods, they are trading. So there are economic issues, themes, topics linked to their farming culture. And there is a host of information about native economics and trade in the 1800s, linked to, for example, the Hudson Bay Company, all the traders that were in the Ohio Valley in the 1700s, and the way European traders tried to rip off the Indians and how the Indians advocated for themselves, and problems relating to the kinds of things, the kinds of goods and services that were provided through that exchange, control by the colonial governments of the Indian trade and all of that kind of stuff. It is a really rich literature. And, you know, you're right. Tressa and I could go on for an entire hour on just that alone. Truly, it's amazing. So I'll stop.
Well, and if any of you were on or were able to attend that first session that Tressa and Gwen did, Gwen touched a lot on the trade and what the products that were products and things that the Indians used or grew or whatever to trade. And so that would tie to that economics. So if you missed that session, I think we have that recording up on our website now. So you could go catch that if that's something that you're interested in looking at, because she did a good job of talking about those things. And those were really the economics piece, part of that. So.
Oh, cool. And look at you guys here on the chat. Origin stories are a point of comparison. See, there you go. So knowing that, Tressa and I could recommend either books of origin stories for Native peoples in the woodlands, or track down origin stories related to Native peoples who lived here. So it's one of those things, like Tressa was saying, if you ask us a specific question, you have a specific need, we can ferret that out and dig down, because like she said, we were talking in general terms, but we also recognize the specific needs that you have. And sometimes general stuff is frustratingly tantalizing, but not specifically specific enough to help within your classroom. So.
And one of the new pieces of information in the Google Drive is an Excel spreadsheet. And I've tried to go through the materials that are there and connect them with some of the standards, the main standards. I didn't get down to the numbers, but I have like Kentucky geography or economics or whatever. So that may get you started. I probably will not go into much more detail there, because I'm not a teacher. And so I would need to leave the more specific number standards and what's the other, I forget the other qualifier there, for people who are in the classroom. So I've kind of done the wide search there and tried to give you some indication of where you might find some economic pieces, and but it'll be on you to kind of drill down to the minutia within that. But that might get you started really quickly.
I got to tell you guys, this Excel document that Tressa has prepared is truly remarkable. It pulls together a lot of information, a host of sources, diverse ones, with a brief abstract about what it is, and then those links to the standards, the general standards, is just really, really a lot of work, but very helpful. I think, I would think, I hope, we hope, for teachers to at least be able to figure out, sort of like she said, the general. It's remarkable. It's really amazing. We have another one that Tressa pulled together for this particularly, which covers some of the stuff that's on that Excel and some of it that's not. That particular resource guide prepared for you all specifically, that Excel file is listed there, but it's just really quite actually it's a little overwhelming because there's just so much stuff. Yeah.
Again, it is surprising how much stuff we actually do have when we start pulling things together for events like this. This is why it was really exciting for us to get this invite So what other kinds of questions might you have that we can specifically target? Okay,
All right.
there you
Okay, Tressa, take it away.
go. Kate, would you be able to pull up the Google Drive on a screen share? That might be the easiest way to do that. I've tried to organize it a little bit better than the first draft, and again, we have added actually quite a bit to it. Some of it, like we talked about in the first session, is that these people weren't like beamed in here from somewhere else and kind of start in this environment cold turkey. They'd been here for a few thousand years. And so they were able to, we felt like it was important for you to understand that their development of their cultures was a long time coming. So that, you know, what folks see in the 16 and 1700s had thousands of years of precursors. And that's why some of this material does look at time frames earlier than that. Some of these pieces do have, if you look at, it's got a woman on the front of it, a woman's
I can see it on my screen all the way down near
all
the
the way
bottom.
yeah.
That's
the piece. That's the piece that will show you what all is in the Google Drive. And that will give you a synopsis of each piece. That will probably be that in that Excel file. There's only one Excel file in the Google Drive. Those two pieces might be the place for you to start. And then that will tell you what else is in the Google Drive. The one thing, Gwen, that I realized I did not do is there is one other file in that Google Drive, and it is a set of murals from Wycliffe Mounds, which is about the right time frame. So if you all were looking for images, those are phenomenal images for Mississippian lifestyle just before the 1600s, Gwen?
These would be the Mississippians, right, at Wycliffe Mounds. And so those folks would have been there until the 1400s, but their lifeways and their houses and so forth that are depicted in these murals are relevant for farming peoples in the 1600s. Just ditch the mounds. But I don't think there's a mound in that mural either.
No, it's kind of
it's a lifeway scene.
Lifeway scenes.
Yeah,
and
it would work.
Kay, I think that I thought that I shared that. I think it's in a file kind of it's at the very, very top, Mississippian Life. Above where it says that one. Yeah. If you all looking for images, those are phenomenal ones. Those are sets of mural. It's a mural at Wycliffe Mounds based on the regional life of Mississippian people. So
there's no mound there. So that's perfect, Tressa. Yeah.
So if you're looking for images, those would be really good ones. We also have the image that's newly added of a hunting camp on the Kentucky River. And that was a poster that was prepared for American Indian Month. It was a mural that was painted and it was at Salado Wildlife Education Center for a long time. It is no longer there, but at least we do have that image on the poster. So the images on the Kentuckians Before Boone poster that's in there, which is a black and white, and the booklet that goes along with that, those would be some good sources for images. There's images in all of the the Kentucky Archaeological Survey booklets, which is the Adena, Forest Fires and Their Makers, the, what's the Boone?
The Fort Ancient Farmers, yeah.
Yeah, and then the guy that has the pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a variety of imagery available there with enough explanation for you to go ahead and use it in your classrooms. There's this booklet, the poster, and then there's just a single like legal size sheet that has information on it all about the same poster. The booklet will probably give you more information than the sheet does. And
then there's that teacher's guide that goes with the poster that's in the Native Presence.
Yes. So, and the poster is available. You can download it and print it, or download it and put it up on your smart boards, smart screens. Might be an easy way to really look closely at the images on that poster, all of which are drawn from actual artifacts found archaeologically, with some life scene ways.
That poster has illustrations of stuff that goes on in eastern and northern Kentucky and western and southern Kentucky. And one of the chapters in Native Peoples Continuing Lifeways is a scene by scene description of what is being illustrated, linked to the, what's on the screen right now is that Native farming village. That's the poster that Tressa was talking about that the Native American Heritage Commission prepared. Last time when we were chatting, I was talking about how Fort Ancient farming peoples had hunting camps. This is an illustration of a hunting camp in central Kentucky, illustrating that hunting camp sort of aspect with the technology that's going on there too. That's what's really marvelous about the image at Wycliffe and this one here. It has all kinds of lifeways activities going on that you can see. But that Native people.
And may I ask a question? I know the last time that you presented, you showed us images of how the stereotypical image we have of Native Americans came to be. These are accurate representations of these are what we really need to be showing students instead of those other kinds of artificially or stereotyped images.
These are specific for Kentucky's history, yes. And the other poster, it has a few smaller lifeway scenes in it, people doing stuff, which would be very, any of these, if you want to do a compare and contrast between the actual factual stuff and the stereotype stuff, it'll blow you away. But again, I think you always have to, and this is something I've heard, and some people do it and some people don't. They talk about American Indians in the past tense, regardless of what time frame they're talking about. Indians did this, Indians did that. Or they'll say Indians hunt, Indians live, they'll use a present tense, but they're talking about what happened 500 years ago. And it gives students the wrong impression that people either still do this, they still live only by hunting and gathering, they still live in bark-covered homes, or because they don't see any of that, they assume that Indians no longer exist. So I have been in classrooms where I've heard instructors use the present tense talking about history. And kids pick up on that even though they don't really realize it. And that's why they're confused about the fact that American Indians are a contemporary people. So, any of these compare and contrasts, I think you have to be a little careful in your time frames, because every culture progresses and changes over time. And to assume that American Indian people have not is a disservice to everybody. But I have seen that in the classroom. So when you're looking at these images, you have to make absolutely certain that you're saying, this is the way people lived 500 or however long ago it was. And then get a good shot of a powwow scene or contemporary Native people that are actors, or there's a ton of people that are in the news now for acting and environmental stuff and politics and music and fashion design and all kinds of stuff. So making sure that your students are aware, yes, you're teaching history, but that history comes right up to yesterday. And in Kentucky, again, like Gwen mentioned in the first session, there are 90,000 American Indians in Kentucky today. So, you know, I think that we need to make sure that students across the state are aware that American Indians exist in our societies today, in your schools today. But this is the history that they come from. So sorry, that was a soapbox. I'm back on to topic.
It's very fine, Tressa.
But
I guess if I were to highlight some of the resources in here, meaning in this Google Drive, but also on the teacher resource handout, there are these hard copy pieces, content pieces, linked to, I guess you might say, pure content, but there's also other kinds of things in the Excel file and on this resource sheet where the woman is sort of thoughtfully looking out at us. Tressa has listed a host of some websites and places to visit. There's a curated webinar, a presentation basically similar to the presentation I gave a couple of weeks ago. There's the new videos that were created by the Living Archaeology Weekend Steering Committee about ancient American textiles. And Tress is talking about compare and contrast the native textiles in comparison and contrast to the pioneer textiles. So those two short videos provide a compare and contrast for a particular technology, in this case textiles, to highlight the similarities and differences between pioneers and native peoples. We've provided you a chapter from an encyclopedia that outlines Native history that comes all the way up to the 21st century. And you'll, by perusing these items, you'll see, you know, what's best for you and your students. We've also provided some short magazine articles about particular topics, all of which are listed in these two sources that Tress has pulled together, because the opportunities for teaching content, particularly history, but also in conversation with some of the folks last time we met, there are other opportunities like, particularly since you guys are teaching older students, the issues relating to active citizenship and civics, for example. There are sources here that if you pulled a couple of them together, you'd be able to discuss issues related to civics and active citizenship topics using Native history. One of the things that Tressa and I have discovered over the years of working together, that any topic in history writ large, economics, religion, politics, social organization, foodways, religion, dance, music, clothing, games, women's roles, men's roles, technology, all of those kinds of general topics, geography, engineering, all of these kinds of topics there's information in Native American history. And like Tressa said, because we can't anticipate the specific needs that you have, which is why this Saturday is such an important opportunity. We've got the time for specific questions from you and having a conversation, all of us together, to share and question and brainstorm and so forth, specific concerns and needs that you have to help meet your specific needs in your classrooms. So Tressa and I figured it'd be like deeply boring if we went through and said, you know, the first resource here and the second resource here. I mean, you know, you guys can read. So we just wanted to highlight the depth and breadth of resources that are out there. We've tried to make as many things available to you physically in this Google Drive, but also accessible through that Excel file, linking all of this to the standards. One of the questions that folks had repeatedly, and most people who sent in the responses to the questionnaire, is that most people wanted to know about how to evaluate. I mean, speaking for Tressa, we were just thrilled to get this feedback from you all. We realized then that a couple of the new or additional things needed to be added to the Google Drive relating to evaluating. How do I know what's good to use? How do I evaluate images? So we wanted to spend just a little bit of time discussing those kind of challenges for evaluating materials that you might stumble across and think to yourself, I don't know, this kind of looks good, but I don't know. Because the one thing that we do not want to leave you with today is a hesitancy or a feeling like you're too afraid to do this for fear you're going to insult somebody. That reticence, you know, as a classroom teacher, you guys know, you have to be able to stand up there with control and comfort and share this content. And we don't want to seem overwhelming here. We want to be able to help. And so recognizing that evaluating all of that stuff, ferreting out all of that noise online, and there is an awful lot of noise online out there. We thought that might be particularly tangibly helpful. So did you want to start in on that, Tressa?
Sure. I think one of the things I'm looking for that piece on the Google Drive here. I don't see it in this particular shot. It's probably further down. It is a what's it look like? It's how to tell the difference.
How to tell the difference. Okay,
Yeah.
I can see it there. It's near the poster, the Kentucky Before Boone poster.
Oh yeah, it's got a circle design right in the middle of the page, Kay. That one.
Mm-hmm.
This is prepared by American Indian educators and other folk. And it walks you through kind of questions to ask about images, and mainly this is specific to children's literature, but it teaches you how to start looking at things. And if you don't mind to open that, Kay, just to give folks an idea of where it starts. Now, this is an older version, there is an older version of this. This is an updated version that has some additional information on it. This comes from a book. Will it open? Hopefully. I don't know that I have my book with me. I do. The book that it came through is called Through Indian Eyes, and it has, it's out of print now, but it has quite a few specific examples of books. And yeah, Gwen has it, and I have it. I have it too. And it gives you specific reasons why books are good or bad. Reading through a few of those types of things will start training your brain on what to look for with regard to stereotypes and misinformation and harmful attitudes, both in text and illustrations, harmful for getting the information, the correct information to people, and harmful to your American Indian students, presenting stereotyped or kind of just really bad imagery of who and what American Indian people are. So, but yeah, this is, and some of these images do come from books that are probably not on shelves anywhere anymore, but they are indicators of the way a lot of people think about American Indians when it comes to textbooks, advertising. It's on TV. It's a lot of advertising that they have. They finally took the woman off the Land O'Lakes and, that sort of thing. But there's a lot of books that are award-winning books that these folks do not suggest that you use in your classroom because they they follow stereotypes and they promote stereotypes. But reading through this starts training you of what to look for a good representation, or in text or in imagery, what is good and what is bad, what supports actual factual American Indian life, and what is a negative stereotype, an oversimplification. And one of the things that many books do, or many images do, is they combine elements from a variety of different tribes into one particular image, as if all American Indians are the same. And that's not the way it works. There are 500 different languages. There are thousands of different ways of doing things. And you can't lump them together. And that's one of the issues that you kind of look for. Do they make all American Indians look the same, talk the same?
One of the things that I always think about in trying to assess this kind of thing. Okay, in a counting book, are we going to count 1 little, 2 little, 3 little white people?
Yep.
Are we going to play Caucasian?
Yep.
Are we going to dress up like Caucasians? Are we going to characterize Caucasians? Are we going to dress Caucasians with a traditional Dutch hat, with a traditional French dress, over traditional German lederhosen, and then wear a hat that the Sami people wear in Finland?
Yep.
Do we think of Europeans as all one group, or do we know that there are French, Spanish, English, Dutch, and so forth? So for me, when I look at something or read something, I try to replace the Indian statement or the Indian description with a Caucasian kind of frame of reference and see how that sounds. So what would America have been without the Caucasians themselves, with their magnificent feather headdresses, their colorful blankets, their bows and arrows and wampum belts, their wigwams and moccasins and birch bark canoes that cut through the water like steel plows, their poetry and their history? Well, that's not all Caucasians. Wait. There were all different kinds of people. Wait. So, and I'll be honest with you guys, it took me some time to realize how I see the differences in Europe, but I didn't see the differences in North American Native peoples. And yet the size of North America is certainly larger than Western Europe. And it's because, you know, we're Western European studies and Western European history and all that kind of stuff. And it's easy to forget about this diversity and so forth for Native peoples. So one of the ways I try to assess or evaluate for stereotypical wording and pictures is to replace Native with European. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't sound right, then I know that I need to steer away from it. Because honestly, Tressa, don't you think that here in the 21st century, we've got greater, more authentic images and more appropriate, inclusive history that teachers can use? I can't imagine what my teachers were able to use when I was in elementary and high school. It was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's why we grew up with all those stereotypes being taught to us. So yeah, just using a different term for American Indian or Indian in when you're looking at an image or when you're reading a text, it does kind of, sometimes it smacks you right in the face. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, you know, that's not right. But it does take a little bit of training yourself to look deeply at this. And that's why this particular piece is helpful, because these are written by Native people and people who are very traditional and people who are very contemporary both. So their take on things is going to be different than a non-native's take on a particular piece of text, because they are very knowledgeable about their own traditions. And so when it says, you know, Indians themselves, you know, as if they're all one group of people. And again, if you think about American Indians as having even one thing that's diverse, language. If you think of them having different languages, typically other things are different as well. And it will kind of clue you in. It's like, well, you know, the people up in Alaska are not going to have bark boats, are they? Not likely. So, and that's when you're talking about books, reading lists for either picture books or juvenile fiction or young adults. Yeah, I'm all over that. I can give you lists of books, lists of authors that are good for that age range, both in historical fiction or fiction, that really would give your 6th to 12th graders a good insight into what it's like growing up Native.
Now, Tressa did put on here or in a maybe it's on the Excel file. There's American Indian Library
Association.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would be a good source. But I think you maintain a list too of books. Yeah,
I do. And the thing is there's two websites. The American Indian Library Association has awards every other year, so those are good ones. But there's also another website that has kind of a critical. Actually, there's two more that kind of gives you a critical analysis of some books. One is listed in the Excel as oyate.org. It's an organization specifically for teaching correctly about American Indians, but it does have a really good reading list where you can order the books from them, or at least know which ones are good ones. The other one is a particular lady, Cynthia Smith, and she has her own website and does kind of critical assessment of American Indian authors' books or other books about American Indians. And I don't know that one's on the Excel file. If it's not, the Excel file is a work in progress. I'll be adding some things to that. I'll be adding the coding to some things that are, I think everything on there right now is coded. The Cynthia Smith's website is not on this right now. I will add it because it is very helpful.
Oh, cool. Amy's on it, man. Amy just put it in the chat. Awesome.
That is the one. And she is really good.
Yay.
The other thing is there are actually this year are books on the Newbery winners that are American Indian authors.
I was gonna ask you to tell folks about that.
Yeah, but they are not. It's more of a picture book. It's for fourth grade and down probably. But there are some other ones that are very well done that are not native, but that do a good job at it. And again, when you're just because somebody is American Indian doesn't mean they know anything about any other tribe than their own. So you have to be kind of careful there. But
I mean, here I have Welsh heritage. Nobody's going to ask me to tell you about Welsh history. Okay, I got nothing except, I don't know, maybe Robert the Bruce, and that's just because I saw,
he's Scots.
See, there you go.
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I'm all over the reading part of it. I can pull some things that are specific. There are a couple of authors right off the top of my head. Joseph Bruchac, his stuff runs the range from adult to junior fiction. So about fifth grade level up. But the YA stuff, he's all over it, and he does a really good, Cold Talker. He has one on Geronimo. He has some kind of mysteries. He has the Journal of Jesse Smoke, which is about removal. There's all kinds of, Amy, you and I can chat about that. I'm a reading geek. So we'll more on that later. Yeah.
You guys aren't going to believe it, but she's read every Newbery Award-winning book.
Yeah, except for this year's. I haven't done this year.
And when I say every, I mean every. From the very beginning it started, she's read them. Tressa, don't forget about this yay one here regarding literature.
Indeed. Judy Sizemore is a powerhouse when it comes to creating lessons for anything, but she has done a really good job with this particular piece. And again, like Gwen says, is just because you're teaching history, please coordinate with some of the other teachers in your grade level, because you can do stuff all the way across the curriculum. And Judy's piece here is a really easy intro to how you can do that, because she's got basically a blow by blow on how to do it and what resources to use, what questions to ask. And she's really good about tying it to Kentucky standards. So, and this piece is really, really good. And somebody had asked for some hands-on activities. There are a number of lessons that are in here, as well as in a couple of other pieces that do have hands-on stuff. If you go to the Living Archaeology Weekend website, that has some lessons that have hands-on activities, but Judy's piece does also, especially when you're tying in literature to art or literature to history and science. They have hands-on pieces. So, so that ties in a couple of different,
I
the other
don't
two,
think, I don't think that the Native Peoples Continuing Lifeways has specific hands-on. But the suggestions that they have are more about discussion questions and so forth.
right.
So
Native Presence has hands-on stuff.
yes, Native Presence does have hands-on stuff. That's exactly right. And,
And-
that one is linked, you all,
To video.
a video that KET prepared several years ago. And this is the activity sheet for that. This is another piece that would be linked to civics. The Native Presence video is an hour long, but you could consider it two parts. The first part is about Slack Farm, the looting at Slack Farm, and what that meant and what was involved with that. And there are a variety of Slack Farm related materials in the Google Drive and are listed in these two resource lists, the Excel file and the other one. But the other section, the other part of that video is really interesting because it talks about people who are discovering their Native heritage and what it means to them to finally identify and search for and come to terms with their Native heritage. So it's still accessible on KET, is it not, Tressa?
Yes, it is. There's a link to it on the Excel. There will be a link to that on our, well, no, that's the learning media stuff to KET in general on our website. But yeah, there's a link to it. It is you can go to KET and just Google it or just search it and it'll pop up and you can watch it on demand, I think.
Yeah, and it works well. It really does work well as a two-parter. Like if you want to focus on looting and site destruction and how Native peoples feel about the appropriation of their ancestors' graves and grave goods and so forth, that's the first half. Second half is very interesting to hear people talk about what it means to them to be Native and that kind of thing. So it's really well, and it's KET.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really well done too, I would say.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, Tressa?
Yes, absolutely. And again, Judy works with KET, producing some of their learning media. So it is prime stuff. And again, on the Living Archaeology Weekend website, there are hands-on activities connected with some of that. They may not all be there yet, but keep checking back into that website because Gwen and I both work with that organization, and we have mostly produced by Gwen. There's a lot of content and activity and lesson stuff there that is specific to Kentucky. However, it's outside of the time range, generally speaking, that we're dealing with right here.
Right.
But in general, it's another really good site. And don't forget the Native Knowledge 360.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that's again prime. Two of the other things that I don't want to forget are you had questions about assessment of your students and questions about how you can use this with special ed students. And I would think that some of the hands, again, I'm not a teacher. I'm certainly not a special ed teacher. But I think there's quite a bit here that you could pull from for special ed classes, whether it's a hands-on, whether it's using picture books or video or other types of images. And maybe that's why you all need more images available to you. With regard to assessment, talk to me about that a little bit. What do you need when you said you needed help with assessment? That's different from evaluation. And yeah. So I'm not exactly sure how we can help you with assessment. So I need some a little bit more information there. Kay's put a bunch of stuff in the chat. Thanks, Kay.
I will also add those things to the active agenda. I just can't do it right now while I'm sharing my screen.
Got. Yeah, the list of books is not in this yet. Basically, when people ask me about books, I fine tune a list for them. So yeah, send me what you're looking for, and I can fine tune a list for you. But what about assessment?
Yeah, because
I'll go ahead and send her email to you.
we weren't really sure. Were you saying that you needed help with assessment in terms of coming up with tools that would help you assess your students' knowledge? Or were you wanting to know about how to assess your students' knowledge? Like, what were the main things that we think the students should come away with? Because, you know, from a certain perspective, because Teresa and I are not classroom teachers and our pedagogy just goes about as far as whatever, you know, our ability to give you tangible sources for how to assess your student learning. What I can say is this, and this is not in the Google Drive, and I hadn't even thought about this, Tressa, until right now. Linda Levstick, who is a professor emeritus at the University of Kentucky's Department of Education, she and I worked together to assess the effectiveness of Living Archaeology Weekend's hands-on event with students. These students had come to Living Archaeology Weekend, which is a one-day experiential learning outdoors where students get an opportunity to experience firsthand what it's like to use a spear thrower, how you use a pump drill to drill a hole. They have a chance to try their hand at taking the hair off a deer hide. You get my drift. But we wanted to know, because the steering committee wanted to know how effective these hands-on activities were, particularly how teachers were going to use this visit in their classrooms, because some teachers come to Living Archaeology Weekend as the final performance event before the end of their unit on Native peoples. Other teachers use it as an introduction. So we wondered. So Linda and I worked with four fifth grade classrooms in Lexington to ask the teachers and to come back and ask the students to find out, to assess, to evaluate, to figure out how effective hands-on learning of technology was for students' understanding about Native people's intelligence when it comes to technology and other things as well. And what we discovered, and Linda and I prepared a report of this, which we published, and also Linda prepared a blog that is more hands-on pedagogical on instructing teachers how to get those students to pull the connections together to make those leaps of critical understanding. The students had been doing a unit in Native peoples. they had been doing some reading and study for a unit. They went to Living Archaeology Weekend and experienced the technology. And for many of the students, that made the connection, that made the click. For others, it didn't. But the conversations coming back from that event, students' understanding of the diversity of the Indigenous experience, the intelligence of Native peoples, the role their technology played and how it was linked to their social, cultural context. I will say Linda and I nearly wept as the children were explaining all the different things that you needed to have to be successful users of the spear thrower and makers of spear thrower. And one little girl said, well, you know, you've got to have music. And we were like, okay, so how are you getting music from making a wooden spear thrower? And she said, well, when you sing, it gives you a rhythm. And so the singing, you know, would give you a rhythm on how you made the wooden tool. We did not expect that kind of connections and those links. And the thoughtful consideration, because these kids had been scaffolded with all the content and the information linked to that hands-on learning. And what Linda concluded was all that was required was a few well-questioned, well-placed questions by the teacher in a classroom discussion. And it was amazing the connections these kids made. As teachers, you all know, if you've got that right kind of open-ended question and you've scaffolded kids or your students with that kind of the content knowledge and in a safe environment, all it takes is one good open-ended question and they are off to the races. And this is what happened when we worked with these students. So for me to talk about assessment, assessing students' knowledge of facts, is that what you're asking? Or is it assessment of deep learning? And for the deep learning part, I can offer the study that we did for Living Archaeology Weekend.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm just not your person, because I don't know I don't know all those rules of thumb that active classroom teachers know. One good open-ended question, yeah.
Gwen, can we add that Linda's blog and your all's thing to the either to the Google Drive and or to the spreadsheet, or both? I think would be good. I think that's a piece that is a little outside our norm, but with Linda and yours work on that, I think it would be really helpful. Now, the Living Archaeology Weekend was targeted to 5th grade students, but I think it's very easy to spread that in either direction, lower or higher grades.
Because what we were doing there, what this hands-on activity was, and this is something you can do in a classroom, you don't have to go to Living Archaeology Weekend. It was linking various data sources, documents, objects brought into the classroom. So the students had background information from reading, but they also had that tactile learning opportunity with objects. So for example, bringing or having someone, finding somebody to borrow an object from Native contexts in the 1750s. A picture will do just as well. And with these older students, they can their cognitive knowledge is to a point where, I mean, everybody likes to touch the stuff, but oftentimes you don't have the option as a teacher to find it and spend the time to find the stuff and get it out on loan and blah, blah, blah. The point is an object, a photo of an object, and interrogating that object, then linking that object in time and place. So for example, for our economics topic that we just mentioned. Okay, we know that Native peoples in the 1750s in Kentucky were trading with European traders. Most of them were from Pennsylvania, just the nature of the history of the thing. So a primary document would be a list, and there I know of one here, a list that a trader made of objects relevant for trade with Native peoples. So there's that primary document, and the students go, well, what is a stroud? Okay, so you have to go figure out what a stroud is. It's a kind of jacket. But there are other things, tangible things, that a photograph would work. A stroud might be more difficult to find, but a tinkling cone, a blue glass trade bead, knives, mirrors, that kind of thing. That kind of thing is what the Europeans traded with the Native peoples. The issue of elastic and inelastic trade, which confounded European traders because they thought, well, the natives are going to need zillions of axes. And Native people were like, no, we got one good axe, we're good, that's fine. The difference between a perception of inelastic trade and the experience of elastic trade and so forth. So with an object there, which makes it tangible, the thing that we're trading for, and the list that what we're trading, and then that compelling question, that open-ended question relating to, okay, so if you were a Native person, what are you going to do with this object? If you are a Native person, how are you going to use this axe? Does it replace? How is it related to your technology? Because we know, based on the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago, that we know that they had axes, ground stone tools. We know that they had hoes, deer scapula hoes, but the replacement factor, and why would Native peoples want to get something, well, what's the thinking about replacing what they have with something made by Europeans? Durability, for example, holding an edge for sure. But what does that mean when it gets you into some kind of economic trade that you cannot get out of when things start going bad? So objects and primary documents, and one of you all asked for primary sources like written documents or pictures of artifacts. Those kind of specific things, because of the research that I do in mid-1700s Native history, I can provide, for those of you who are interested in it, I've got some ideas for primary sources. It would depend on what you would want that primary source for. Maps, I've got traders' journals, access, that kind of stuff. So I just don't know. I don't know, like Tressa said, I don't know what you mean by assessment.
Gwen, I think the other thing that you might be able to provide that I think could be used as a primary document would be photographs of artifacts, like
right.
the tinkling cones and the beads. And I mean, would that be considered a primary primary document, primary artifact?
Yeah, I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, to me, that particular question was like, I don't know if I can answer that question.
Yeah, me neither.
So
we're talking all around assessment, but I don't.
So
I need to shut up so somebody can answer.
So photos are great, but do you know of a place where they could access actual artifacts? And my question, I guess, pertains to that is I know that the Kentucky Historical Society has those traveling trunks. And I wondered if any of those traveling trunks relate to this kind of theme or topic. I don't know. I can find out. But I know that they have some things that you can get and check out. And if they had something that would be like that, that might be a great way to bring that hands-on piece in.
Yeah, it would.
But do
Yeah.
you know of any other places where where we could actually get our hands on some artifacts, even if it was just for a borrowed kind of, let's check it out kind of thing? Checking something out of the library.
Yeah, that might not be a bad thing for the commission to think about, putting together a couple of traveling trunks that I would need to pass that through the commission, because we have had donated items, artifacts to the commission that don't have provenience. So they would be great as a teaching tool. So that's something that we might be able to kind of develop. I think the Lexington History Museum may have some traveling trunks. I do not know what's in them, nor do I know if they are in circulation.
Right, I know
That
what you're
might be
talking
something we
about,
can
yeah.
look into.
The William S. Webb Anthropological Museum used to have traveling trunks, but I just don't know, and they are sort of in flux in terms of they're having some building rehabilitation going on, and they have a new curator. So I don't know if I would be hesitant to contact the William S. Webb Museum of Anthropology at UK. Short journal entries.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've got short journal entries. Okay.
Again, this is photos of beads and fake artifacts. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those out there.
Yeah, because there are folks like one of the guys who demonstrates at Living Archaeology Weekend. He is involved in living history and knows where to get authentic facsimiles for I think his era is French and Indian War, or maybe American Revolution. I can't remember which. So
Who is that again? Who are you referring to?
This is a demonstrator at Living Archaeology Weekend, and there are reliable organizations that have appropriate, historically accurate materials that you can purchase. The one in Indiana, what's that one called? Turnbows? No. Oh,
You mean that supplies?
Yeah.
There's quite a few.
Townsend's.
Yeah.
Townsend's.
They're very specific. Reenactors are very particular on being accurate.
Yeah.
So,
if we have a trip to Williamsburg this summer, and they have some portrayers who are extremely accurate, to the point of, like, they came into one of our sessions and were like, they were almost naked accurate.
Yep.
We were all like, kind of like, going, whoa.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I looked at the Kentucky Historical Society, and they do have 3 traveling trunks, but that none of them are related to this topic. So I'm going to keep looking for that. And I will share as I find it to everybody within the group, including you two.
Great.
I'm making notes.
Yep.
What else can we do for you?
Somebody else tell us about assessment. What do you mean?
Guys, I think if you don't get a sense for what they're asking, they want to know exactly what you need, and they want to help you find it. So if you've got anything that you need, speak up, because we're so lucky that they're that willing to help us.
I don't remember asking specifically about assessment on the survey myself, but my guess is that teachers asking for assessment may even be asking for what things are important in the standards that we need to hit on Native American culture. And then how do I go about teaching and assessing those particular topics? That's my guess. I don't know for sure if that's what people wanted. I teach language arts, so I'm probably a little bit, I'm more interested in the literature aspects that you're sharing with us, which are really great, by the way.
Gee, this is where I fall down because I don't know the standards well enough to be able to specifically speak to that.
Well, I'm certainly not tied into the standards as well as I would like to be. I'm working on it. But my reading of it is that they are by which standards apply by grade, and then drilling down through the discipline strands and the concepts and practices and stuff. That's as far as I go on that Excel sheet. I don't go all the way down to the standard numbers. And those standard numbers are what's going to be specific about what you want to make sure your students know, I think. The concepts and practices portion of that, which is like movement and migration, or economics, macro or micro, trade and interdependence, cause and effect, conflict and compromise, change and continuity. Those are some of the things that are in your standards for the practices. And I think with the information that you have here, I get overall what I think Gwen and I have talked about this multiple times, is that we need for people, and not just students, but everybody, to understand that American Indians are just people. They solve problems that all people have. And when you're talking about, for instance, conflict and compromise, there was quite a bit of conflict, and there was not so much compromise with regard to American Indian history between these tribes and the U.S. government. There was some compromise early on, and depending on where you were. If you're looking at cause and effect, if you're looking at, say, trade, if you're looking at decision makings, if you're looking at roles and responsibilities of a citizen within a tribe, all of that is, the roles and responsibility you would have to look at historic tribes. That's from, if you're looking at Shawnee or you're looking at Cherokee or something like that, that's kind of tribal, part of your tribal identity and what basically would get you kicked out of the tribe. But I think looking at the concepts and practices is, if students could identify any one of those things, that would be a good way to assess whether or not they got it. But again, I'm not a classroom teacher.
Yeah.
So, but that's why I think that the Excel spreadsheet that does have some of those listed for it may be helpful to you to be able to work up some sort of assessment questions for your students.
Yeah.
And maybe in Judy's piece, maybe in the literature, Teacher's Guide to Literature, that may have some assessment pieces in it. I don't know. I don't know. So, and I think that one of the folks that came to the first session said one of the helpful things for her was having a group of teachers to kind of bounce things off of. And maybe that's something that you all can work internally among this group. There's 16 or 20 of you.
And we've got some time set aside now. It's about 10:30, and we had set aside the last half hour for you all to ask us specific questions, your needs, outline your needs, specific questions, specific needs, which then might be the same kind of specific questions and needs that your colleagues here on this Zoom are also having concerns about. So maybe the thing to do would be to stop the screen share and then open it up for a general discussion of specific concerns that you have, which others might also share. And then Tressa and I do the best we can to see if we can't help answer it. Or somebody else in this group might say, well, gee, I use this and I found it very helpful, you know? So
I just found something very cool when I was looking for the links that you all had mentioned. And on if you look up Living Archaeology Weekend, they have videos, they have all kinds of background information for educators. But the thing that I think is the coolest, which might be something we talked about, is they have Engage with Tech Talks, where you can go on and they're those hands-on kinds of things. There's clay artistry, weaving with river cane, preserve our heritage, and those are all coming soon, it looks like. So there might be some things that you could use as resources there. So I just wanted to share that because I was just trying to find the links for everything we had discussed to put them on that active agenda. But there are some really, really neat things here. And there's a great picture at the front that has your all's picture. You're both in it. That's very cool.
Tress is a demonstrator at Living Archaeology Weekend. She gets the award of the stinkiest demonstration, particularly if they put her in the sun, because she's involved with showing folks how to take the hair off the hides. The students, the kids, the folks love it. But you know, if she's in the sun, and you were one year, and she requested to be in the shade after that.
Yeah, so it's not a good thing. First day is usually pretty good. The second day can get a little rank depending on the animal, on the deer hide. So Josh put in a comment. Gwen, what do you and I consider to be compelling essential questions?
Okay.
Gwen and Tressa, I don't know if you're as familiar with the inquiry teaching model that is part of the new standards, but it's set up that you ask a compelling question and you do that inquiry around that focal question.
Right.
So just to give you the context, if you can have it.
Okay, so like, for example, colleagues of mine and I developed an entire unit on shelter linked to the Project Archaeology investigating shelter program. And the compelling question there was, what can we learn about the people who lived in a working class neighborhood in Davis Bottom by examining their shelter? And so that compelling question took students off into archaeology, history, oral history, civic considerations, and that kind of thing. So a compelling or essential question. Okay, so on our Google Drive, Tressa and I pulled together some essential themes or topics in Kentucky history. And you know, I'm really bad at just spitballing an essential question, because you guys know this. It has to be open-ended. It has to be broad enough. But it's kind of like, what can we learn about Kentucky history by studying Native history? What can we learn about Kentucky's because for Tressa and I, Kentucky's Native history is simply the first chapters in a long history of people living here in Kentucky. For us, there's no break. It's humans on the landscape. attending to, like Tressa said, attending to the standard things that humans have to attend to. How do I make a living for my family? How do I make sure that we are safe and warm and happy? How do I explain to my children what death is? How do I understand my relationship to the cosmos? I mean, it's almost like, what compelling, essential question around Kentuckians would we ask? It's sort of, for me, it's the same kind of thing. So remove Native American and think about what kind of compelling questions would we ask our students to consider when considering Kentucky history. Is it different from other human history? Is it the same? If it's the same, how is it the same? If it's different, how is it different? Because all humans everywhere have to attend to interpersonal relationships, explanation of who you are, relationship to the environment, be able to be adaptive to when things change, whether that's culturally or environmentally or whatever. Okay, I think I can say personally that I would be very pleased to think that once your students came away from considering this particular era of Kentucky history, that they would understand that Native peoples are people. Brilliant, adaptive, mean, wonderful, horrible, loving, hateful. But we need to appreciate them as humans, not as stereotypes, not as caricatures, not as simple-minded people, not as savage people, but as people, and how their history is our history. And I don't know how you ask a compelling question of that, because that's like the biggest picture, is this biggest question you can ask. But I would just love for students to know that they are just the most recent humans that lived here in Kentucky. Native peoples, non-Native peoples, it's all our home and place. Same challenges.
Yeah, Gwen, I think one of the things that strikes me is that when it was fascinating listening and reading about yours and Linda's work, talking specifically about technology, and that our contemporary idea of technology is this, this is technology, our computers are technology. But 2000 years ago, there was technology happening too. There was technology with weaving. There was technology with weapons development. There was technology with gardening techniques. There was technology with ceramics. So, something to me would be, and doing hands-on stuff with hide tanning, there are tools that are specific for hide tanning. And you have to develop that type of tool depending on which type of tanning you're doing, on what your technique is. There's different tools for different techniques of tanning. So if you're saying, okay, how do people develop technologically through time? And if you start with early American Indian history and take it all the way through with something simple, like, not simple, but weapons. Okay, you have atlatl to rifled guns, and that whole, what all that means, and how you develop that, how you build them, what knowledge you need to know to back all of that up. So it helps me to think specifically and then expand
Mhm.
into a larger arena than the other way around. So
Right.
that's kind of the way that I think of it.
Mhm.
Now, you teachers, again, I'm sure have, you've been trained to do that, although this may be newly forced upon you as an educational component. I would think that all teachers ask questions, and it's only been that the KDE has decided that they're going to ask teachers to ask questions, and it's like, well, teachers always ask questions. That's why you never want to raise your hand, right, in class. So, but again, and maybe this is a way that you all can help us to help other teachers, is that if you come up with really, using Gwen's terms, tasty, compelling questions, if you would share those with us, then we can share with others, and maybe we can compile, something more, something that we can hand the next batch of teachers to say, here's some suggestions for essential questions. And maybe Gwen, maybe you and I can tap some of our additional resource people and say, what do you do? Because there's a couple of teachers that we know that are very actively engaged with Living Archaeology Weekend that would be able to apply their knowledge on both ends of that to this particular question that may be able to, we may be able to share their answers with you. So I got a whole page full of things I need to ask other people to help me with. So.
Because it's one thing for us to share stuff that we think you need, and it's another thing to really share stuff that you really need. The idea is, our hope is that what we've provided you, you can take and use directly in your classroom. That it provides you those sources that you need. I mean, because, okay, here's a question that Tressa and I had then, and that was, if you don't come to Achieve and find out these kinds of things, if you don't come to a program like this, where do you get your information about Kentucky's Native peoples? What sources do you use? Google search.
Yeah, that's fraught.
And then evaluate what I find, which is all the reason why needing to know how to evaluate is so important. I mean, do you speak to other teachers? Do you share stuff around?
Ladies, as a former principal, we always sent our students, all of our 5th grade students in the district, to the event at the Red River Gorge in person. My question is, in 2022, is that the event's going to be at Red River Gorge again, the Gladdy Creek Center? Okay.
Yes.
And that will be in person, and it is primarily geared to 5th grade students, correct?
It is geared towards fifth grade students. On the school day, it is open to the public on the Saturday. School kids on Friday.
It's an outstanding event. Our students always loved it. I mean, that was something that generated a lot of conversation among students. So it's a great event, but I was making sure that that was still the plan, that next September that he will be at Red River Gorge again.
Yes, the dates for that are September 17, Friday, September 16th, and the public day is Saturday, September 17th. Red River Gorge at the Glady Center. The event is Living Archaeology Weekend. Where do we find information? The website? Yes. Our Facebook page? Yes. Yes, both.
And I'm the one that coordinates the I'm the one that coordinates the teacher or school reservations. You have to have a reservation to come because we do have a limit on numbers that we can handle. So
Is there a cost associated with that?
it is free. We do take donations, but it is a free event.
And both Pioneer and American Indian technologies are demonstrated there. And our attempt is to have parity between those technologies. So if there's textiles on one side, there's textiles on the other. If there's weapons on one side, there's weapons on the other. Foodways on one side, foodways on the other, and so forth.
How early do people have to register for that event?
We have not sent out the invitations. We're still trying to find out how many demonstrators will be able to attend. This is an event that has been in progress for 33 years. And some of our demonstrators have been at every event. Yeah, so there is buy-in with our demonstrators.
Guys, this would be a great student engagement piece for your kids if you all were interested in doing that. So I'll share that information out with you all as if you all will keep me updated on how that's going so I can share it out with everybody.
Let me ask Gwen asked how you find information. Is there a listserv or a publication or an e-publication that you all pay attention to for this sort of information from whomever? One of the folks at KDE asked if we would write articles for Kentucky Teacher.
Mhm.
Do any of you all receive that electronically? Are
Yes.
any of you all on a listserv for the Kentucky Historical Society's educator list? Yes, no.
Listservs are common for us to receive. You can sign up quickly and get information from a listserv, but the KDE website, for some reason, when I sign up, it goes, I just need to work on getting that sorted correctly. But Kentucky Teacher is an electronic format, and there's a professional learning bulletin board that you can go to find particular events. But then there's also a posting of actual, just informational resources that you can go to on that website published by KDE. But they're looking for your specialty, to bring that content there, because that is the key. And if I could just have a few more seconds, I just want to
Gosh, we talk too much.
Okay. The organization of the resources are what's the challenge. We know of reliable places to go to find good information. KDE is trying to provide good professional learning for us, but they are heavily restricted by copyright infringement and laws. I mean, absolutely. They just can't link to whatever they want and send us to that. So they will typically try to include these comprehensive articles that are excellent, but for 6th grade, the Lexile is incomprehensible to those children. So we are struggling with teaching ancient history on a Lexile that is approachable to the child level. It is not quite there. People are producing lots of resources for us now and saying, this will go with what you're teaching, but it's not quite to the level that's accessible to the children. And that's where we need our, that and teachers, I mean, time is, time is the ultimate resource, and we don't have it to change the Lexile for those children. So it's very taxing for us to find in a quick space reliable resources that are accessible to our students. Thank you. All right.
Mhm.
I see. So what you're saying is it's one thing to have the content for the teachers. It's another thing to have the content that is at a consumable for the students themselves.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Field trip type activities. I know the Historical Society has some field trips available. I know that there are certain days at Farmington, right,
Mhm.
Gwen?
Yep, and
Yeah.
Riverside in Louisville.
And Riverside in the Louisville
Both are
area.
Louisville. Mhm.
There are field trips available to Wycliffe Mounds if you're in Western Kentucky.
Mhm.
We do have some sites listed on the document in the Google Drive. At the end of that, there's some sites that are, most of them are Central Kentucky though, except for Wycliffe Mounds.
Mhm.
What was the name of the one in Louisville?
There's two places that provide field trips. One is called Riverside, the Farnsley Mormon Landing. They have their Native American element is not as well developed as their Euro-American historic farming plantation. And then there is a field trip opportunity for Farmington, which was a hemp plantation, the Speeds hemp plantation. And I think they also have field trip availability at Locust Grove, which was which I think was Clark's
Yeah.
plantation,
George Clark. Mhm.
George Rogers Clark's plantation.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the Congressional Academy that you're currently planning.
We do a summer activity for students that teachers within our grant can apply for, and they can, it's
Mhm.
almost like they get a week-long summer camp.
Cool.
And they can, for students, we pay the students a stipend, we pay the teachers stipend, and they can plan field trips into that Congressional Academy.
Mhm.
So that's why I think he was asking for those places that, you know, to maybe help him or others plan if they're thinking about doing that kind of academy with students in the summer.
I see. Well, my colleague Jay Stotman, who is the archaeologist, well, my colleagues, Jay Stotman and Lori Stahlgren, who are archaeologists at Riverside, and Lori is also at Farmington, by contacting them early enough in a planning stage for something like your Congressional Academy, Jay and Lori, like I, are public archaeologists, and working for the survey, our goal is to make available these kinds of opportunities for teachers. And so contacting Jay or Lori, you could have some kind of event that could be prepared or adjusted specifically to the Congressional Academy participants at either one of those two places. This summer, Louisville has something that they've done for the past couple of summers. It's called Cultural Pass or Culture Pass.
Mhm.
And that is open, that parks and historic sites are open free of charge, and you get a pass and you can go certain days or Culture Pass days. So that would be something that you might consider as you're planning, Kay, to get in touch with Jay about something that would be linked to Riverside or Farmington.
And
Field trips near Eastern Kentucky.
I would say in Eastern Kentucky, I would say the Cumberland Gap. I would say there's the Lincoln Museum and there's Martin Station. Lincoln Museum and Martin Station are not in the state, but they're like 5 miles from Cumberland Gap. If you did all three of those in a day, you would hit some really, really good stuff.
Martin Station is insane.
Martin Station is great.
Oh, because it was a real station, and they've created it not too far from where the real station was, and
Right.
the folks sometimes they're I've visited there. It's really quite amazing.
And they have particular weekends or weekdays that they do living history events there, which it pays to check their schedule.
Mhm.
Also, in the Louisville area, Fraser Museum is fixing an exhibit that's going to be pretty good. Gwen has been involved in making sure that that is accurate and appropriate.
And I know
So-
that you could do a trip to, if you were planning something like that, you could do a trip to some place like the Kentucky Historical Society and the Fraser Museum in one day, and maybe do one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
Right.
Bringing kids that far.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
We've
It's,
done that. We've
yeah,
done that before. Yeah.
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 If you're going, go all day and hit a couple of places. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. No, exactly.
They do good programming also at the Sons of the American Revolution. They're in Louisville. It's right down the street from the Fraser. So, you know, if you're at the Fraser, there's within walking distance, there's like 6 other museums,
Yeah.
both from science to
Ali
African American
Museum's in there.
history, Native history, Kentucky history. Yeah, you can hit 1, 2, 3, 4 within 2 blocks in downtown Louisville. But Martin Station and Cumberland Gap,
Mhm.
and usually the Lincoln Memorial University has exhibit space as well. So
I haven't heard anybody say anything about textbooks. Do you guys use textbooks anymore?
my
Correct.
students don't.
Or if it's all just resources? Not really. Okay. All right. So,
Is that because they're too expensive?
just as supplements. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes your load lighter. Students load lighter physically.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I have textbook fund, not fun. Oh, great.
Wow.
Can't get one approved. Jeezy Pete. You know, guys, if it
Well-
was just teaching, what a wonderful experience it would be, wouldn't it? I will say that trying to find stuff via Google, it all has to do with the words you put in. I took just a wild hair and I typed in Adena. Adena are the hunter-gatherer gardeners who lived in Kentucky and West Virginia and Ohio. They built the burial mounds in central Kentucky. And the stuff that came up was, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, I don't know what people who don't know anything about this are going to do, because the information was dicey at best and totally wrong at others, and was deeply stereotypical kind of stuff. Oh yeah, History Alive, but the district doesn't want them to have it. Nice. American history connected with the past. Cool. I haven't seen those. A push.
Um,
And then History Alive.
and 2, I would recommend, you know, if you can go to one of the tribes websites, like the Shawnee websites. There's a couple of different Shawnee tribes. There's a couple of different Cherokee tribes. Going to their tribal websites can get you some educational material there too. So if you want specifics. And those are the Cherokee, Shawnee, Chickasaw are the tribes that were historically in Kentucky. However, there were others that claim Kentucky. So not just those 3, but there's some others as well. But tribal websites are always a good bet for good history.
Should we put those links on a, do we have those links on a,
We don't,
okay,
but we can add them.
tribal links?
We're adding all this stuff.
Yeah. We only have a few minutes left. I want to say to you all, the specific needs that you have, we're prepared to help you with. You just need to give us send us an email. We can talk on the phone, do a Zoom or whatever, for specific needs that you have. If you have not had your concerns and interests and specific needs attended to adequately here today.
Yeah, and again, you know, contact one of us if you have additional wants, needs, questions, comments, things that you would share with us that we can share with others? Any of that?
Because, it's a process. It's it's an ongoing process of finding, sharing, developing, updating, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we hope that this has been helpful for you in a broad sense, but also in a tangible sense, in a hands-on kind of sense for this this interesting and challenging role that you play as teachers in the 21st century. We always need teachers, and we're glad you were able to join us today.
Yes, thank you.
I have a quick question. The Linda Levstek, did you mention that she has a blog, or there's a blog she's affiliated with?
No, she prepared a blog about our research, and
Okay.
I'm going to track that down. I have it on my computer somewhere, and I'll put that in the Google Drive.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to locate it and I wasn't sure.
Yeah. No, some organization asked her to blog about the results of that assessment and evaluation that we did of Living Archaeology Weekend. So
Oh, okay.
that's what she did, and that one's much more tangible, pedagogical opportunity themes kind of stuff rather than general content. It's more take home and use rather than, gee, look what we found out kind of stuff.
Well, we want to thank you both. This has been very informative. I've got so many resources to look at now, and additional things than what you have in the drive to share. And I'm thinking we've got some student engagement activities we can plan through this, and this has been phenomenal. And I hope that all of you feel that it's very helpful to you as well. We'll stay on for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, don't forget to fill up the sign-in and the evaluation at the bottom of the agenda, because that's how we give you credit for this. We want to make sure you get that credit, and look at that contact sheet. If you have any questions for them, please carbon copy me in, because as you learn, I might learn too, and it might be something that I can turn into something for everyone. So I just want to be, we want to give you the resources you need. That's our goal. So thank you again, ladies. Fabulous as usual.
Thanks for the opportunity.